Right now, we are so woke in the military, we're losing recruits right and left. We've got people doing poems on aircraft carriers over the loudspeaker. It is absolutely insane of the direction that we're headed in our military, and we're headed downhill, not uphill.
Could we confidently take on China?
Oh no, oh no.
All right, let's get into it. So for over 6 months now, Senator Tommy Tuberville, a Republican senator, has held the promotions of literally hundreds of military officials hostage over his claims that the military is just too woke, ladies and gentlemen, just too woke. Now, his real beef isn't about poems on aircrafts or anything like that. His actual beef has to do with a new Department of Defense policy on reproductive rights, which he claims is in violation of federal law, but isn't actually against federal law, and makes it abundantly clear that as a United States senator, he isn't aware of what federal law entails. Should be a little concerning to American voters. Now, here's what you need to know about Tuberville's latest tantrum. Back in February, the Pentagon announced that it would give service members and their families both leave and reimbursement if they should need to essentially travel out of state in order to access abortions or reproductive health care. Okay, now this is relevant for members of the military who are stationed in certain states that have effectively banned abortion. Alabama happens to be one of them. Alabama also happens to be a state that holds 6 military bases. Now, Tuberville claims that the DOD's policy is illegal because of the Hyde Amendment, which states that federal funds cannot be used to end pregnancies. However, the Justice Department argues that no, this doesn't go against the Hyde Amendment because the government would be paying for the travel of these individuals, not for the abortion itself. Now, regardless of the DOJ's recommendation, Tuberville went ahead and blocked all military promotions anyway. How is he able to do that as just one member of the Senate? Well, so far, Tuberville has stalled the nominations for 300 generals and flag officers. A total of 650 more military leaders require Senate confirmation by the end of the year. Now, here's how Tuberville is able to essentially block the confirmations of these individuals in order to engage in his little culture war stunt. The president's nominations to military leadership are submitted in batches for group consideration and approval. The batching procedure itself requires unanimous consent, allowing even one senator to stand in the way. Now, we're talking about 300 people here. Doing confirmation hearings for each individual person would literally take 3 years. So as a result of that, they do this process where they do the confirmations in batches, but they need unanimous support by the senators. And so that is the reason why Tuberville is able to essentially stand in the way of these confirmations. Now, in one op-ed published in the Washington Post, the secretaries of the Air Force, Army, and Navy explained how Tuberville's stunt is actually hurting the military. So 3 of our 5 military branches, the Army, Navy, and Marine Corps, have no Senate-confirmed service chief in place. Across the services, many generals and admirals are being forced to perform 2 roles simultaneously. The strain of this double duty places a real and unfair burden on these officers, the organizations they lead, and their families. We know officers who have incurred significant unforeseen expenses and are facing genuine financial stress because they have had to relocate their families or unexpectedly maintain 2 residences. So Cenk, here you have a Republican lawmaker essentially screwing around with the military, screwing around with these necessary and important confirmations because he wants to give Americans the illusion of governance by essentially doing nothing to benefit them or improve their lives, but positioned himself as a culture warrior against the woke military.
Yeah, so I have some opinions on this that might surprise some of you guys. But the first one is not about poems. So he's like, they're doing poems on aircraft carriers, can you believe it? I mean, why don't you just declare that you're not interested in being intelligent? who cares if anyone reads a poem or doesn't read a poem or writes a poem or not? So okay, fine, I looked it up. So I can only remember 3 poets, my fault on my education apparently. Anyway, Walt Whitman, Robert Frost, and E.E. Cummings. So I looked up those 3. It turns out, yeah, E.E. Cummings served in World War I. Hey, we won World War I. We were okay. Can poets serve? Of course they can serve. That's the tiniest little thing, but it bothered me because it's him saying like, people who are smart or intellectual, they can't fight. They're no good. They're not real Americans. Us dumb Americans are the real Americans that serve, and we don't do any stinking poems or stinking physics.
Look, for people like Tuberville, it's not about intelligence, right? It's about, poems are weak.
Of course,
right? Poems are soft. We don't want any softness. We don't want any poetry in the military. That's where he's coming.
It just bothers me how dumb Tuberville is. Anyways, so now here's the surprising parts. I don't care that he's holding these guys up, and I don't think that it's a national security concern. And then they say, well, look, these guys are now being called interim, and that's a big problem. No, it's not. Donald Trump made everybody interim. No one cared. And whenever Democrats held anything up, he's like, who cares? Just, I'm gonna put that guy in charge. We're gonna say his name, his title says interim, but he's gonna do the job. Who cares?
Why can't they just do that now with the individuals that they appointed,
they can.
Right?
Yeah, but Democrats love to cry. Okay, just so they're interim, and they're like, well, they don't know if they're gonna stay because it's called interim, and so now the soldiers are confused and they don't know who to listen to. No, that's a problem in the military if that's true. You listen to your commanding officer. Where's the question? Okay, so I don't think it's that big a deal. And I wish the Democrats would do this on stuff that they cared about. And the one thing I'll give Tuberville credit for is, he says, I care about this, so I'm gonna use every tool I have in my toolbox to make sure that I punish women.
Does he? Does he care about it?
Okay, so, well, I mean, he cares enough to do this stunt, right? So I'll come back to the central issue that he's fighting about, because of course he's wrong about that. And then the last thing is, and I found this greatly amusing. So normally they do a voice vote, as Anna explained, and everybody goes, no objections, and they go through. There's hundreds of them, right? So, but you could do a roll call vote, and you could do it one by one, especially for the head of the Marines, the Army, et cetera, right? The really important positions. But the Democrats say they don't want to do that because it'll hold up the important business of the Senate.
What important business? What important business?
That was my question.
Blocking legislation that the vast majority of Americans want, like paid family leave, minimum wage hikes, stuff like that?
Yeah, guys.
Childcare?
Yeah, you.
Oh, Senate, so important. You guys do such important work, blocking the will of the American people. F off, please. Why did you have to tell me about that?
That's because I'm telling you, it's absurd. You guys can name the post offices later. Democrats, please don't pretend you're doing anything, please. And Republicans, please don't pretend that you care about passing any bills other than tax cuts for the rich and corporations. All you want to do is these hearings on Hunter Biden, et cetera. You're all useless. You're all doing nothing anyway. Just go and do a bunch of roll call votes. What do I care? And you know what'll happen? Those elitist pricks in the Senate, they'll get so exhausted. They're like, we have to do our job. I gotta go make donor calls. Good, I want your ass in there doing roll call votes 24/7, okay? And you know what'll happen? Then the other Republicans will start yelling at Tuberville. And they'll be like, Tuberville, we're all trying to raise money here, and I haven't kissed enough rich ass today, okay? And eventually Tuberville will give in. But Schumer wouldn't know how to fight back if his life depended on it. But finally, to the main issue here, he's holding it up. Why? Because he's saying now the new rule in the Pentagon, in the Biden administration, which I give them credit for, is if you're based in, for example, Alabama, but you're from some other state, a blue state or wherever you are, where abortion is legal, we made you as a member of the armed forces go to Alabama to go to that base to train. You got pregnant. You don't want to be pregnant. You have every right in the world if you live in Massachusetts to get an abortion. But now the military forced you to be in Alabama. So if you want to travel back to Massachusetts or any other state to get an abortion, of course we should pay for it. We should pay for you to come to the base. We should pay for you to have these normal expenses. But Tuberville's like, nah, that uses my money to give women freedom. And I don't like that. I want to strip women of all their freedoms, make sure they go to war and die for me. By the way, I'm pro-life. But if they actually want to do anything for themselves, I hate their freedom because I'm a Republican. Okay, so that's the reality of the whole thing.
You know, that's good reasoning. Am I wrong for feeling that that's more of a cover story for, hey, we don't want a bunch of female soldiers getting pregnant when they don't want to. We need them. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, you need them for fodder for the war machine.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, maybe I'm being too cynical, so maybe I need to take down the sodium content a little bit. I don't know.
No, I think your cynicism is warranted, but I think maybe it's off in a direction, in my opinion. So look, I think the reason Tuberville is really doing it is because he wants to raise money, and so he wants to go back home.
I agree on that.
Yeah, he wants to go back home to Alabama and say, I put as more restrictions on women than anyone else did, and I was willing to mess around with national security and attack the Pentagon and all that things that we pretended to revere as Republicans. I remember when all you guys put support the troops on your cars, right? All those bumper stickers.
Right.
Now all of a sudden, when it comes to supporting the troops, they're like, no, take away their money, take away their rights, take away their freedoms. Okay, this is Alabama. We don't believe in freedom, and so that's what he wants to brag about and raise money by doing that, both from Republican donors and the grassroots. So that's why he's doing this publicity stunt.
I agree with you on that. I'm just referring to the Department of Defense and their latest policy on providing.
I see, my bad. No. I think that's Biden going, well, I don't want to pass a law that makes abortion legal. That would be hard. There was nothing we could do. So, I got it. I'll do my usual 5%. And in this case, do a microscopic rule at the Pentagon, a good one, but it's a really tiny rule saying, we'll pay you the $150 it takes you to drive to the next state to get an abortion, right? And by the way, and it worked because then the mainstream media gives them tons of credit, and they're like, "Wow, amazing law by Joe Biden, amazing to protect women's rights." So that was his marketing mission accomplished. So Biden's got his reason for doing it, which is to avoid the bigger issue, right? And by the way, why does he want to avoid the bigger issue? Because he wants to hold it over the Republicans' heads for the next election, right? He wants to say, if you elect the Republicans, they might ban abortion, which is true, right? So he doesn't want to fix it. He just wants to play around the edges. So that's politics, but you never see that anywhere on TV. They don't tell you the cheesy maneuvers of either side because they have to have access to these politicians. Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.